So you've mentioned the shit with Rishi Sunak and the Chancellor. Well, he is the Chancellor, isn't he? So
Still is, yeah.
yeah, you mentioned all that. Basically, to give people an update, if you haven't seen it, you're living
Context.
under a rock. But the Chancellor has his missus. His missus is a non-domicile person in the UK who isn't paying tax. She makes like
Legal.
727 million in taxes, I think it is to be paid or something.
She is
And
richer than the Queen, apparently.
yeah, so she's balling, right? She owns
Yeah.
Infosys, who is holding a base in Russia, which is also another angle that everyone's been harping on about. And what they're upset about is that when you're a non-domicile person, it means you live in the country but you don't pay tax there. So she
Mm.
lives in the UK but doesn't pay tax. This
Mm-hmm.
guy's the chancellor, which means he's the one that puts together all the budgets that everyone
Mm-hmm.
adheres to, and he essentially runs the economy.
Mm-hmm.
People are saying it's very hypocritical that the chancellor can do something like that, have a wife who gets away with not paying tax when you're making everybody pay taxes. And added to that, he's also got this green card situation as well, where he had a green card for residency in the US up until last year, and he surrendered that. So everyone's calling for his head, basically saying you need to step down. And it's funny because he was touted as the next guy after Boris. But anyway, reason why I bring this up is because it makes me
Mm.
think: can people in power relate to those beneath them that they're dictating the rules for, or they're trying to help out? So I
Mm.
was thinking this, and I was like, is this true? I don't know. I don't think you can accurately put yourself in another person's shoes. So can a counselor relate to
Mm.
someone who is an addict or going through rehab? Unless they've been through it, you kind of can't, can you?
I mean, that's a really, I'd say, good and extreme example. Yeah, absolutely right. And we talk about this a lot in hospitals about the difference between sympathy and empathy.
Yeah.
And you would have heard me, Indy, when we do the medics weekends, and we have actors, and somebody's, for example, got a, I think it's the angry patient station, and then one of our students will say, "Oh, I know how you feel," and to which the actor will say, "Well, do you? Do you know how I feel?"
Yeah.
Because unless you've been through it, you don't really know. You can only imagine. So I agree. Yeah, I think if somebody has had affluence for most of their life, and
Yeah.
Rishi's wife is obviously very very affluent. Um, when you're bringing in laws and your legislation, you're looking at spreadsheets, you're looking at budgets and all this kind of stuff.
Goran, you saw how this guy tried to pay for a flipping Coke, or how he tried
How
to pay
did
for his
how
petrol.
did it try?
You didn't see? Oh
No, what's
man,
this? Oh, is this
he
the
had his
picture? This is the stage
contactless.
photo. The stage
So
photo.
he did the stage photo with the
Yeah,
petrol
yeah, I saw
pump,
that.
and then
Yeah,
he
yeah.
went to go and pay with it via contactless.
Right.
And he had the Coke can in his hand, and he had the contactless. Right. The guy had the scanner. He held it up. He put his card to the scanner to pay, but the guy was trying to scan the Coke. He didn't know where to do contactless, basically.
Rishi,
And I'm like, are you that out of touch that you don't know how to pay for something by contactless? So you don't know how money works
because you've not had to do it in a long time.
because you've never had to do this in a normal.
Yeah,
So you've
yeah,
never been
yeah.
to the corner shop and got
Because
something and pay
because
contactless.
everyone does it for you.
Oh my days!
No,
Like
that's
that
that's
blew. I was like, this has got to be fake, but no, it was real.
damn, son. I mean,
That's
yeah,
bad,
yeah, yeah.
man.
That's bad. There's no way to defend that. Is there? Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's very. I think yeah. If you've been that far removed for so long, then yes, when you're making policies, if it's not going to affect the way you live and impact your day to day, or if it does, it's so micro. So for example, I don't know. What kind of numbers can we put to this that'll make it? Say he's got like £1 million, right? And he has to lose 1,000.
Hmm.
But compared to someone who's got 10,000 has to lose 1,000, big difference.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. I think, and obviously they operate at this level, which is kind of above, the eyes of whatever. If you're making the policy, who's going to look at you
Well, they
until
tried
this
to
shit?
operate above the law, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then shit will come out, and then he's what has he done now? He's voluntarily said, you can look at everything and blah 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 blah. And his wife's made a statement now as well. I mean, it is important to say that obviously nothing they've done is illegal,
No,
but
it's not illegal at
in the
all. But
context of how
it's
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 viewed,
immoral, isn't it? It's immoral to do something
why
like
is it
that
immoral to have a green card?
because uh, the green card thing, I'm not sure about. I think it's because
Yeah.
you can have residency in another country which
So
potentially I assume it's because you can do something around tax evasion. I don't know.
I don't know
Maybe it
that, but
could be
that
that.
point wasn't made really clear. That kind of for
But
me when I
equally,
heard it.
why should you have why should you be able to live in another country when you're
Hmm.
meant to be a member of the British government? So you should only have residency in England, really, because you're part of the British government. See what I mean?
What they didn't make clear in the statement is he? I presume he's British citizen. Because you can't
I
have
think
dual
he is, yeah.
citizenship. You can't have dual citizenship. That's not that is a thing.
Yeah.
But for me, it felt like a tag on. It was like, okay, they're talking about the non-dom and this and this, and they were like, and he's got a green card, and I was like, yeah. And what's your point? And nobody's making the point. I want to hear the point. So that's one thing.
Let me look at the
And
point.
then
Carry on,
yeah,
go on, go on.
look at the point. And then with the wife thing, yeah, it's one of the things. Sometimes I think, okay, so she's living here, but she's not a citizen from here, so technically that's fine. She's not doing anything illegal. And when you're playing at her level, that's a lot of tax, man. And it's not tax evasion; it's because it's a legal loophole. But the way it's viewed, I understand it's skewing now. Now, obviously, okay, she's making the statement about I'm happy to pay tax here. But that's almost like everyone's saying, well, it's a little bit too late kind of thing. You wouldn't have done it unless somebody who's
I think it
exposed.
is too late, and I think they've only done it to keep to save face. That's it.
Yeah. But then the other part of the thing was about, Rishi was going to step down, da, 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 da. People were saying that. Don't think that's going to happen, though. He found it.
Yeah.
What does it
I
say?
can read this out. Are you ready?
Go on.
Okay, so Mr. Sunak had a green card until October 2021. More than after 6 years, he became an MP, and over 18 months after he became Chancellor. It's a status that requires you to pay US tax on your worldwide income and pledge to make the US your permanent residence. His spokesperson confirmed that he had filed tax returns while he had the status, but specifically as a non-resident, but in full compliance of the law. They also said he had only used a green card for travel purposes and he had returned it ahead of his first official visit to the US. While it is unclear whether the status conferred a tax benefit to the Chancellor, it's called into question whether a resident of a foreign country should be responsible for the UK's finances. Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay. Yeah, it makes an argument. That's fine. That's fair.
I think that's a
So
fair argument.
That's a fair argument. Yeah. Rishi.
So there we go. But
He
can
is
you
Rishi
think,
Rich, isn't he?
pretty much, man? Do you
Yeah.
think that people can do that though, that they can relate to it? Because I think if you don't have people that are not holier than thou, but a little bit removed from the situation, you might have a sense of over empathy or like a hero complex where you're like, well, I made it out, you can make it out. You see what I mean? So I guess it sets a dangerous precedent that if you only have people in tough situations, they can only help people in equally tough situations. I don't think that that's suitable because I don't know, man. Are there any examples I can give that make this stick? I can't think of any.
Yeah, but you look at, I mean, most people
It
who.
doesn't. Okay, here you go. Let's
Go
use
on.
the addict one, right? It doesn't mean every recovering addict should give other addicts advice, and they should be like,
Correct.
okay, this is the best way to break out of it. We're like, well, you're still kind of going through it. Are you sure that that's right? And I'm not saying that they're tarnished forever, but there's got to be some that have like an external point of view as well to see how things are looking because they might be too close to the situation.
That's fair. But most people that make it into office, are privately educated. They go to certain institutions, they go to certain schools, certain universities. It's all, who boys club type thing. And so if you're so far removed from such a young age, how's that ever going to change? As in, this is a bigger point you're talking about here about do you relate to your constituents and therefore the wider population?
Yeah. So when Matt Hancock, he went on Diary of a CEO, right? And
You went
the
on that
Diary of
show?
a CEO guy asked him, he said, why were you
Stephen,
culture? Huh? Yeah.
is
He
this
was on it
recently?
about a month ago.
Oh, I'm gonna listen to that. That'd be
Nothing
interesting.
juicy
Okay.
was on it. It was okay. It wasn't great.
Why
But
did Stephen want him on there?
listen to it and you'll find out he kind of just touches on it a little bit and he says
Okay,
like
go on.
why. But his main point is I'll have on who I want to have on. I shouldn't have to conform to what everybody wants me to have on. I just wanted to have him on and talk to him about his situation and what had happened. And the one question he asked of him was, he said, "You're the culture secretary, but you know nothing about culture or social media or anything like that." And it wasn't gotcha, but he said, no, genuinely, why were you given that role? Because you have no expertise in it. He said you should get somebody who's closer to the surface, which is kind of applicable to here. And he said, well, my job as the culture secretary is to talk to people who are in that space and then draw conclusions off it and draw legislation off it. So he says, I talk to experts, then I have to kind of dumb it down, make sense of it, and then pass it on to government and then pass through legislation that is applicable for what the government's trying to strive for. And I said, yes, I can see that. But if you don't understand basic fundamentals, there's a problem there, because if somebody above you knows the industry inside out and you've got barely a 5% exposure to it, you're going to get exposed every time. You're going to get caught out every time. It's similar to how you must have seen those memes where Mark Zuckerberg was being questioned by those guys in the Senate. And they say to him, so how does this Facebook thing make money? And he's like, Senator, we run ads. And he's like, oh. And I'm like, oh, so cringe, so cringe.
Lawmakers, yeah.
Yeah. So it's similar to kind of that whole complex. And yeah, I don't know what the right answer for this is, but I do think you have to have experts in the field that can help you through that. Just shoving someone in because they're a mate or because there's a vacancy and you've only got this pool of MPs to pick from kind of gives you a limited pool to sort of work with.